Drum and bass. What's up, dogs? It's Cameron with Venus Theory, and in today's video I wanted to show you guys how I go about programming my own drum and bass breaks and drum programming in general using Groove Agent and samples in Cubase. So this video comes by request of Jordan Ava, not totally sure, sorry about that. And yeah, so we're going to take a look at how I make these, how I chop them up, slice them, re-groove them, and pretty much everything there is to do with drum programming when it comes to drum and bass style stuff. So without further ado, let's dive in and get started. Alright guys, so in this video I just wanted to go over how I go about doing kind of DnB style drum break programming in Cubase. It's not really total rocket science, however it can be difficult if you're not sure like how to construct a break on your own instead of using like loops. Like maybe you want to use your own drum samples to create like a DnB style sound. So this video is basically just going to show you how I do that. So what I like to do is use Groove Agent SE4. This is included with Cubase. It's super handy. This allows you to create little drum racks. So I loaded up some drum sounds here. These are all from the default libraries. Some are from Groove Agent 1, Groove Agent SE. I think a few are from the beatboxes. I'm pretty sure the kick is, and maybe the AM signature drums. Not 100% sure, but not important because you can use whatever you want. You can use your own samples. You could use sample packs, whatever. So how I go about doing this is I grab a couple of different things. Obviously, we need a kick. So I grabbed a kick, and we need the main snare. So I grabbed this one. Maybe not the best snare sound, but whatever. And then we need a ghost snare is what I like to call this. So this is that little in-between shuffly bit, and I find a really short, tight sample works best. If you have something with reverb, you could just tighten it up here by setting the sample endpoint and fading it out a bit. Make it really short. In this case, it's pretty much fine. We'll maybe fade out this noise. Cool. 2 hi-hats, and just make sure they kind of sit well together. So these two are pretty similar, just a little different, so that'll work. Some kind of open hat or cymbal or ride. I just grabbed this because I think this works. And then other percussive elements, your little clicky 808 percussion cowbells or whatever. In this case, I grabbed 2 hi-hats and I just turned them into a shaker by adjusting the fade-in length. So that is going to let me do that. In this case, this one has a bit of low end, so I'm going to go to the filter tab here. We'll just grab tube drive. We'll set this to high pass, 12, I guess. Now that sounds a bit more like a shaker, and they sit well together. So the next important thing is under the VSTI tab over here. We're going to set the outputs. So we need a kick, a snare, a ghost snare, and then the hats, and then the cymbal. So we're going to do, what I'm clicking here is this little output button, and this allows you to activate different outputs. So we're going to need kick and snare, little ghost snare. Here's our hi-hats, and here's our cymbal. So in Groove Agent, what we can do is open that back up, right-click, and assign the outputs. This is out 2 for kick. This is going to be out 3. This is going to be out 4. These two are going to be output 5. Maybe I didn't activate enough yet. We're going to need one more. So 6 is going to be our percussion. So these two, we're going to assign these to output 6, and then the cymbal we'll do to output 7. Cool. So in our mixer, we can actually see all these individual tracks now. And if you want to see them in the program, just like if you're mixing and you want to be able to do this, you can just twirl down the window. So we'll go ahead and name these. So this is going to be kick, kick, snare, ghost, snare, hat, percussion, cymbal. Okay, whatever. Not concerned with typing, and I'm tired. Okay, so now we need to program our little break. So I've set the tempo to 170. Really doesn't matter, just whatever tempo you're doing stuff at. And now we're going to go ahead and start constructing things. So we're going to need our kicks. So we're just going to drop that in. We'll do a snare here and here, I guess. This is a really common pattern. So this snare is like really damn loud. So we can go ahead and just turn these down right now. Let's just go ahead and mix the kick and snare together. Okay, let's drop in another kick. Maybe right there. Sure. So now we need our little ghost snare. So I'm going to set this to 16ths. I was at 8 notes there. So what we can do is grab our little, oh, we're going to need to turn up the outputs here. Just something about like that for now. So what we're going to do is use this little ghost snare to kind of accent the in-between beats there. So we're going to set it at a pretty low velocity. And before the kick. And maybe one right before this snare. So now we should have a nice kind of shuffly drum and bass groove. Maybe change these outputs a bit, or velocities rather, just so they're all a bit different. Cool. So now we can go ahead and add in our shakers. So we'll just do a little 8th note kind of groove. Okay, and then I'm going to highlight these, and we can just change velocities. Okay, and duplicate that out. And we could probably do our cymbal every like half note, I guess. Something about like that. So I'm going to go ahead and filter that. Cool, so now we can go ahead and get into our hi-hats here. So I'm going to go back to 16ths and just add little grooves in between the snares. We'll do here. Okay, and we could go ahead and just highlight these, and we'll go to MIDI logical editor. Value 1 should be velocity. Oh, value 2 is actually velocity. So we'll do relative random values between, and we'll do, let's do 70, 120, and we'll hit apply. So now these will have, well, I guess not, logical editor. Man, I have not used this in a minute. Okay, whatever. I forget what I'm doing right now, but whatever. We're just going to go in and kind of redraw these velocities as we see fit. Sure, that should work. And let's just alter these symbols a little bit. Cool. So now we should have a pretty decent little drum groove. Mix these a bit. Okay, so now we're pretty much all set. You could shuffle this groove around all you want, which we might do just to demonstrate kind of how another groove would work. But what I usually will do then is bust this all together. My typing today, holy hell. Okay, so I'm gonna bust all of these together. So to do that, I'm gonna grab all these groups here. I'm just holding Shift, open up the routing, and we're gonna hold Control and Shift, Command Shift on a Mac probably. We're gonna send all of these to the bus, so that sends them all at once. And then we could just do some compression and stuff. So I'm gonna grab just kilohertz compressor. 2 to 1 should be fine. This is just to provide a little bit of glue. Usually after that, I'll do something like Magneto 2 here. Cool. So now we're getting somewhere. And the cool thing is now these are all individual little elements. So we could actually go in here and EQ these if we need. We could probably do some transient shaping to the kick. We could go ahead and grab an EQ. Cool, and maybe another compressor here. So basically what I'm saying is like, I'll just do this to create the drums. From here, maybe on the main snare, we could add an EQ, or a reverb rather. Let's do some dampening, pretty short decay, mix it in about 15%, size a bit down, maybe make it sort of wide. Maybe copy that same reverb over to the little ghost snare, just mix it in a bit less. Give the hats a bit of room. And then we get one kind of solid drum and bass groove. And that's really all I do, is just make breaks, dog. So let's go ahead and just make a different groove just to show you the proof of concept here that this does work and it works really well. So what's another common DnB rhythm? So I think that should be it. Yeah, that's it. So we'll do the same thing. Insert our little ghost notes. Generally before every kick is kind of the rule of thumb, if you will. And just do different velocities. Okay. And we'll just kind of offset these a little bit. Whoops. Okay. And then we'll do quarter notes for our shakers. And once again, go in and just grab your happy little brush and make happy little shakers. Okay, so gonna need our cymbal. Do just what am I wanting to do here? I guess we'll do quarter notes. And then same thing. So in this case, I'm kind of trying to think like a real drummer. So I'm going to hit this harder. This is in between. Hit this harder. In between. So on and so forth until we fill out the groove a bit. Okay. And then we'll do that and duplicate this out. And away we go. So one last thing, one last kind of consideration is we can make our own drum sidechain bit here. So I'm going to grab my little sidechain preset I made. It just makes life a lot faster. So what we can do here is send the kick and the snare to the input of the sidechain. Make this pre-fader. The snare, percussion cymbals, these are going to go to the sidechain. And then this sidechain is then going to feed back into the bus. So now when the kick and snare hit, it'll duck out the percussion elements. But obviously now we're suffering from a bit of balance issues, so we could just kind of bump these up. Cool. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to this. But I will do a couple of other things, which I guess I will show you guys right now. So hopefully my logical editor memory is sufficient enough to remember how the hell to do this. So I'm going to highlight this whole MIDI track, and in logical editor, this should actually do it. I hope. Yeah, position. Okay. So the cool thing with this is if we open our logical editor, action target position, relative random values between. So what we can do is actually go to like -5 and 8. So what this is going to do if you watch this MIDI is it actually moves it ever so slightly off the grid. And this is a great way to get a more humanized feel to the drum groove. Maybe repeat that. So then from here, we can maybe add a stereo audio track and another group, and we'll call this through, and we'll make sure this isn't clipping in the bus. We could maybe add auto pan on these hats. And maybe just a little bit of delay. We'll do H delay stereo. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm going to send the output of the bus where everything is going. I'm going to send this to the through group. And in the audio track I just created, I'm going to put the input as the through group. And now the kind of cool thing is we could actually record this out. And now we have our own drum break, which is really, really nice. So we can move this over here. We could just chop this up. So start here. And go ahead and get rid of this little tail. Chop this here, and then we could use that little delay tail for something kind of fun. We could go to audio, process, reverse, new version. Except this isn't exactly lined up with something. So we're going to go ahead and just line it up like that. So now we'll go to audio, processes, reverse, new version, okie dokie, and we could just fade this in. And we get a perfect loop. So from here, we could do like elastic tape. We could set this to musical mode, and then we could like drop our tempo. Say we're doing something like 150. Now we'll get a really kind of nice, heavy, dirty drum groove because this is going to be tuned down due to the tape algorithm here. Or we can make it really high pitched if we went faster. And, you know, so on and so forth. So this is a really good way to create your own breaks. And, you know, from here, the cool thing is if we like open up another instance of Groove Agent, like if we just saved this as an audio file somewhere, we could open this up, drag it in here. We could go to slice mode, create slices, and we could do this by transient. So when I play my drum pads here, it's a great way to create kind of re-grooved versions of itself. But what I would rather do is instead go to grid, and we could set this to like quarter notes. Actually, let's do eighths. So I could, so then I could just draw in a whole new break from this exact pattern. So it's going to start down here at C1, and we know this is set to eighths. So if I just draw C1 up the grid here, that should be the end of it. We'll get the exact same break, except I'm on crack, and I think I did something wrong there. Anyways, the point here being, oh, this is in quarter notes. I'm an idiot. That's why. I apologize. So we go up the grid here. So now we get all the slices, and this becomes the exact same groove. But we could shuffle things around here. To this, sure, and we get this. So maybe that would sound better. So that is how I program DnB breaks in Cubase using Groove Agent. It's a handy dandy little thing, especially when you bounce out your breaks to audio and then resample them basically. So then, you know, we could add some distortion on top of this. We'll add saturation, and we could do more EQing. We could filter it and then, you know, the cool thing here too, being in Groove Agent, one last thing before I shut up and end this tutorial, you can actually go to the main tab here and set the playback quality to like vintage. We can maybe enable the filter, so we'll do tube drive, bit of distortion. We can maybe add like a low pass 12. So you get the point. There's a whole lot of flexibility when you do things this way. So yeah, I'm done talking now, and that is the end of my tutorial. And that's it for this video, guys. So thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again soon.